Welcome back to Real Estate Ramblings. We are short a couple of gals this morning. It is the week of spring break here in Morristown, so we've got a couple that are out, but Michelle and I are here, and we're gonna ramble a little bit for you about some different things. How you doing this morning, Michelle?
I'm doing great. Before we get started, I do want to have an opportunity to congratulate you for being the #1 realtor in the state of Tennessee for the RE/MAX chain. So,
Thank
again,
you.
very
Thank
excited
you.
about that for you, and I know you're excited as well.
I am. It's quite an honor and a little bit overwhelming at the same time, but yeah.
Hard work pays off.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so you and I have discussed this a little bit as we've been on the car driving to appointments and stuff. Of course, you know, the biggest talk in real estate offices and general right now is about this whole NAR settlement. And, you know, how is this going to affect buyer relationships with agents? How are agents going to get paid? And I think you saw on Facebook yesterday a post made by one of the real estate coaches out there that said Yahoo Finance had posted an article advising buyers to hire a buyer's agent for $500. And, you know, I know that as an agent, we kind of roll our eyes and we have all kinds of sarcastic comments that come through our head.
Absolutely.
But realistically, you know, how do you combat things like that?
The things that people are saying, and I do think that what folks have to realize is they think $500 is a lot to pay, so you're paying that at one time. But really, on a real estate deal, especially for a buyer's agent, a lot of times it can take months to be able to see that through. You're working with several people, you're running all the time, from appointment to appointment. There's several houses that you have to see in that. And then of course you get to the deals and you have to see all of those things through. So it's far more involved in that. And so I think that people really need to be able to see the bigger picture when it comes to what you're going to pay, a buyer's agent and what their value really is. It's far more than the closing table. You know, the value in a good buyer's agent is that they're going to put homes in front of you, from the very beginning, hopefully that, match what your needs are. They run continuously from appointment to appointment to appointment, especially in today's market because it's busy. You can't sit on a house more than you have to move very quickly. And so I think folks don't realize really how involved being a buyer's agent is. And if you're charging $500, and again, you're working with several agents, several buyers. $500 is not sustainable. Let's just be realistic. It's not.
Okay. So a buyer calls and says, "Hi, I need to hire a buyer's agent, so I'm shopping around. Before I meet anyone, I just want to know, what are you going to charge me?" How do you answer that?
Well, there's a lot involved in this. And again, I think this whole thing is still, it's still coming together. So we don't really know how this is going to come out. We're kind of learning as we go and we talk about what we're going to charge. At this point, I think smart sellers agents are still offering a co-op, on that.
Because nothing would take effect until I think it was like July. So
right.
But just, thinking ahead to the future, let's say, everything that they've agreed on comes to fruition.
Right.
And I know we are sitting back waiting on guidance from NAR and our franchises and our brokerages as to how are we going to do this now.
Right.
And I think you're right that we are going to still have sellers that if their agent sits down and explains, this is how this is going to work.
Right.
Like, if you don't offer a buyer co-op.
Yes.
How is a buyer supposed to be able to afford your home when they can't even afford the down payment and closing costs at this point?
Right. Well, and I think you made a very valid point yesterday with some of the sellers being upset about, those things. But when those sellers sold their homes, when they got the next, when they bought their next one, it's highly likely that, somebody else paid for their buyer's agent at that time, another brokerage actually. But, that's just the cycle of it. And again, I think smart, agents, I think smart listing agents are still going to explain those things and still going to be able to tell them the value in offering that co-op. As far as my own value is concerned and how I would explain that if they're not offering that, well, you do have to realize that we all do this to make money, to pay our bills. And so we're not going to be able to work for free. That's just, it's ridiculous. But I think, I can't really say that I have a certain number at this point that I would say, okay, this is the percentage that I'm going to charge, or this is the flat fee that I'm going to charge. Again, I think all of that's still evolving. But at the same rate, I do think that there is, if I have to work with a buyer who is paying out of their own pocket, then we're going to talk about why that's important to them. All the things that I'm going to do for them. And again, as I've told you before, I don't see myself as much of a sales rep as I do an agent. It's my job to protect them. It's my job to get them through the process, and get them the best price for that house that I can possibly get them. It's my job to, make sure that we get through the inspection periods, that we get through, all of the hurdles that we have to jump in the process. You can just take that off their plate. So there's definite value in having a buyer's agent that works for you. That's important.
I agree. And I think one way to look at it is, if you're working with a buyer, who maybe is looking to buy their vacation home here, retirement home here, whatever the case may be like that, if they're not like local people, first-time home buyers.
Right.
The majority of those people that are moving into the area typically are putting 20% down if they're not paying cash. And they usually pay their own closing costs. They're not asking for closing cost assistance. So, maybe those are the type of deals where you structure it. Hey, we will take that money that you were going to pay for closing costs. We'll get that negotiated into your deal. Mm-hmm. And then you can use that money, to compensate me. That just kind of makes sense for those type of buyers. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, Fondon. You just gotta. This is just a time, absolutely, that you're just gonna have to learn to think outside the box. And it's going to take some time. It's going to evolve. It's going to change from where we are now. But there will come a new normal. So I'm not terrified.
Yeah, my only real concern, I think, is for our local buyers, those first-time home buyers.
Totally agree.
They're trying to do USDA, they're trying to do FHA, they're trying to do VA, whatever the case may be, and they're not going to have this extra, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 laying around that they're like, oh, sure, I'll be able to pay my buyer's agent.
I totally agree. So I think that's where the biggest effect comes in, is when you have those folks who are, like you said, first-time home buyers. They still deserve representation. They still deserve somebody to fight in their corner. They need that.
They still deserve to be able to buy a house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And more than anybody, they need that structure of an agent to be able to look out for them. And so, again, I can't say exactly how it's going to pan out, but I really do hope that we keep those things in mind and keep those people in mind, because they need it above anybody.
Right. And I know people say, oh, well, they can just use the listing agent. They can just use the listing agent,
Not the same.
And the problem with that is, as a listing agent, I represent the seller. Like, my fiduciary responsibility is to the seller. So when you come to me as a buyer on my listing, I'll answer your questions. I have to be honest. I have to be ethical.
Yes.
I have to disclose any, adverse facts about the property, whatever. But, when you look at the house and say, okay, I'm ready to write an offer, you're kind of on your own if you're going to use me to write your offer, because I'm not going to advise you on price.
Right.
I'm the listing agent, you know?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to give you a number to offer to these people. I'm representing the seller. So it's kind of like if you're getting a divorce, you're not going to go to your soon-to-be ex-spouse's attorney and ask them to represent you as well.
And that's an absolute truth. And I love that you brought that up, Amy, because I think one of the things that, folks need to know before they call that listing agent is, it's not just something that you're doing to be self-serving when you're working on that price. you have contractually made a commitment to give them your loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that buyers need to understand that before they go to a listing agent, that contractually the people selling the home already have your loyalty. That's just that
Right.
They just have to walk into it that way. And if they have a buyer's agent, then the buyer's agent, that
Is looking out for them.
absolutely. And that's one of the things that I really like about our work and relationship with each other, because we have been very plain with each other from the beginning. You represent the seller, I represent the buyer. And so when we negotiate out a deal from either side, we're always very plain with that. And we don't skip around that. We're not ugly to each other or rude to each other, but you understand my position and I totally understand yours.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of agents, you will have agents who have no problem writing an offer on their own listing for a buyer. And typically what they're going to do is they will have the buyer sign a piece of paper that says they're unrepresented. Whether or not that is truly explained to that buyer, I don't
Right.
know. Or you'll see them where they say, oh, well, I don't really represent either party. I'm just going to be a facilitator in this transaction. And to me, that is the biggest injustice in the transaction, because both parties need representation. That seller hired you to offer your expertise to them,
Absolutely.
to help them get through negotiations with a buyer. And then you pop up and go, oh, well, this buyer wants to write the offer through me. So, yeah, I'm not going to represent either party. That really gets on my nerves. And I make a big deal out of it when I go talk to my sellers. Because,
Absolutely.
I'm your designated agent. My job is to get your home sold. My job is to walk you through this process from pre-listing to listing to getting you to closing. And, my job is to show the house to potential buyers who are qualified and want to see the house. But if they want to write an offer, I'm going to pass it off. There's too many agents in our office that I can just, call you, or if you're on vacation or whatever, I can call somebody else and say, hey,
Right.
I got a buyer that wants to write an offer on this property. I'm not going to play both sides against each other. I just don't think that's fair. And then you're taking a full commission on that, but you've represented no one.
Nobody. Right. And I think if folks could see like some of our appointments when we go to, or some of our negotiations between each other when we're hashing those things out. But like yesterday, I thought it was very interesting. We were at a listing appointment and they were adamant. Your sellers were adamant that they were trusting you with the price of their home,
Mm-hmm.
with the advertisement of their home. But let's mainly go back to the price of their home. So if you're representing both sides and you're more worried about getting that full commission than you are taking care of your client, then how do you hold firm to that price, or are you really just trying to pull together a deal?
Right.
I mean, who's really coming out?
Whose fiduciary responsibility are you looking out for there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. And so I really, again, I chose to learn from you for a reason. And when we were there and I watch you do those things and I see that, it makes me respect even more the position that you take with, you don't do it. You don't write those offers. You will call one of us. And again, we've already laid out the ground rules between us. You work for your seller, I work for the buyer.
But, it's not like an adversary thing, you know what I'm saying? But you can be very cordial. You can be best friends with somebody.
Yes.
But you're still kind of, she's looking out for a buyer, I'm looking out for a seller. And we are just, we have to take our stances on those things.
Yes.
And sometimes we can work things out. Sometimes the deals fall apart.
Right.
But, I'm not mad at her. She's not mad at me.
Oh, absolutely not.
We just have to pick it up and go on. But that's why you hire an agent, is to have your best interest and to be able to express your concerns and what you want to do in a transaction to the other agent involved. And I've had deals where, the agents just get ugly.
Oh, yeah, no.
And it's just like,
it's not necessary.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
this isn't your house.
Right.
You're representing somebody. We're supposed to be the calm, cool, and collected.
That's right.
Now, I've had conversations with agents on the phone, and like you can tell, I'm a little upset by whatever. I don't normally verbalize that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will hang up and you'll hear it. You'll hear about it. You and Marty sitting there. But, you've got to keep it on a professional level.
I totally agree. And you do have to understand that it's not personal. This is business. We're just trying to do what's best. I've even had, I've had agents apologize to me because somebody else got the deal. I'm like, why are you apologizing? You that's your job. You're supposed to work the best for your client. And if we didn't bring the best offer, then you did what you're supposed to do. But I've also had agents that I've had to go, you do realize we're working towards a common goal here.
Yeah.
We're both trying to get to the same place. So yeah, you have to learn to work with people, and like you said, it's not personal.
Well, and you said, you'll have agents who call you and say, I'm sorry you didn't get the deal. That speaks volumes when another agent is regretting that they don't get to work with you, because we all have agents that, like, you just really hope they never write an offer on your listing, because you just know from past experience it's going to be a nightmare, right? And so that's the kind of reputation you want as a buyer's agent, is that, agents want you to win that offer because they want to be able to work with you, because they know you're a professional, they know you're going to maintain professionalism, and you're going to work to get that deal to closing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that says a lot if an agent calls to apologize to you.
Yeah. And I appreciated it, but I wanted them to understand I don't ever look at that in that way. I mean, you've got to do what's best for your buyers. But I do always appreciate it when somebody, and that does make a difference.
I've had multiple offers on a house, and Michelle be representing one of the buyers, and I just have to turn around and go, yeah, y'all didn't get it. And I mean, we just...
Yeah. It is what it is.
It is. And sometimes you're trying to advise the buyer, like, hey, I know she's got more than one offer on this. We're going to have to come in with our best foot forward. People don't always listen.
Yes, and that's true too. I mean,
I think sometimes buyers have to lose out on a couple of houses before they truly understand
that they
and get a sense of the market, Yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess she wasn't just telling me that. It's,
Yeah, this is where we are.
This is where we are. So,
right.
And earlier you were talking about, the value that an agent brings and the things that you're doing for your buyers. And one of the things is looking for off-market opportunities, because like anybody can go on Zillow, Realtor.com, and see what's for sale.
Absolutely.
I have honestly had clients who have reached out to me about a home that went on Zillow, and they saw it before my IDX picked it up and sent it to them on our safe search.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just instantaneous now for people. So to me, one of the big values of a buyer's agent in the tight market that we're in with low inventory is being able to dig, network with people, and find those houses that aren't on the market yet.
Right.
Somebody's been thinking about selling, but they're just not ready to put their feet in the water. But, if you've got a buyer, bring it to me. And you're like, okay. And she sold 2 houses that way this year in 2024.
Yes.
By just listening and, this would work great for these people.
Absolutely.
And putting those deals together. So.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah. And so, and keeping an eye, like you said, keeping an eye on the market and learning what your buyers are truly looking for and being able to match those up. I mean, that's important. And again, being timely, staying on top of it, getting out there, because this is just not a market you can sit on. It's just
and to me, that's one of the benefits of being in our RE/MAX office.
Yeah.
I mean, we are one of those few real estate companies that people actually come into the office. I know if you drive by some of the other offices around town, you're thinking, these people never work.
Right.
And if you come here, probably not this week because some of the agents are on spring break with their kids, but a normal week, you're going to see 10, 15
Yes.
cars in our parking lot because the agents are in the office.
Absolutely.
And you're going to hear, agents talking about, oh, well, I've got a listing coming up.
Yes.
And you just got to pick up on those things and be running it through your mind of, oh, I know who would like this house.
Absolutely.
And being that first person to be able to jump on it because you're hearing, what people are talking about in the office.
Right. And I did that. It was great because I had like you said, I caught wind of a home that had gorgeous lake views. And I've been working with a client now for, I guess, probably 3 or 4 months. And they looked at everything from lots to houses and anywhere from here to Norris. And, this house popped up and they were the first folks that, came to my mind. So I was like, hey, let's take a look at this. And we closed it, what was it, Friday?
Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to the whole, what are we going to do with the buyer agent commission? I read a very interesting idea over the weekend about buyer commissions.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been with me on some listing appointments where, I've pulled out, people say, so what do you charge? What's your commission? And I have a menu of services. And I'm like, well, you tell me, And I have it outlined. These are the services I provide based on the commission that you want to pay.
Right.
And they're like, well, we really want that Matterport tour. Well, then this is the tier that falls under. And as a listing agent, like I can do that all the time and provide, this is the value that I'm giving you,
Yeah.
For the most basic fee, we're going to stick a sign in the yard. We're going to put you in the MLS. We'll notify you when we're going to have showings. And, that's about the extent of the marketing I'm going to give to you at a reduced percentage.
Right.
And then it kind of tiers up from there. But I read where they were talking about the idea of a tiered commission structure for buyers. And so the one common thread for all 3 tiers was $1,000 retainer fee. And then that was applied towards the final commission at closing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But to me, regardless of the rest of it, I was like, that is genius.
Right.
Because you're going to get rid of a lot of tire kickers. You know what I'm saying? Because we all have them.
Oh.
I mean, everybody gets them.
Yes.
You've got people who come into town to visit family. Oh, this is a beautiful area. I'd love to buy a house here. And they will have you chasing your tail for 2 days.
It's true.
And then they go back home and they never buy a house.
About it.
So having that $1,000 retainer fee just lets me know, hey, this buyer's serious.
Right.
About doing this.
Right.
But, for the top tier, it was, we'll go show you houses. We're negotiating your contract. We will take care of, getting home inspections lined up, home warranties lined up, all that good stuff for you. And then, like at the lowest tier, you're paying pretty much like a la carte, you're paying per service.
Right.
So it was like $65 for house showing. Or you could pay a flat fee and you would get 3 hours of the time. Just to cover your gas and stuff like that. And then, there was a fee if the buyer wanted you to prepare a CMA, like, well, is this house worth what they're asking?
Right.
Okay, we're going to charge you a fee for that. We're going to charge you a fee to write the offer.
Right.
And then if you have counter offers or amendments, there was a fee for those as well per counter offer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then, you had a transaction fee and you had a brokerage closing fee and, a flat fee that you're going to pay at closing as a commission. And I was like, that's a very interesting concept to me. And I could see where, it has the potential to work. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I hear what you're saying.
But I do think going to something like that would eliminate a lot of B-, C, and D buyers.
Right.
Like you're going to truly be working with people who want to buy a house and who see the value in your services. And like the last tier, if somebody is an investor and they're looking for homes to fix and flip or to rent or something like that, they probably have no problem doing the per showing and, pay you a flat fee to write the contract and get to closing. But for a first-time home buyer or someone who's relocating from out of state, the value is in all the other things that you can provide to them.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was a very interesting kind of approach to it, because it kind of took my play of menu of services for listings and turned it into that for buyers. But I mean, I think everybody's going to have to come up with a plan, and I think you're going to have to be very transparent.
Agreed.
You know, because here's the thing: if I am looking for an attorney, let's say I'm not, but let's say I was going to file bankruptcy. You're going to call attorneys and you're going to shop that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to find out what's your fee.
Right.
If you're getting a divorce, you're going to call attorneys. You're going to find out what's the fee. So this notion that, oh, well, we'll just get the buyer in here and have a one-on-one and then we can sell them on our value. I don't think you're going to get buyers who are going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be shopping your fee just like they're going to shop for an attorney or whatever.
Right.
That's my thought on it. So I think you're going to have to be very transparent and have your plan laid out as to, this is what I'm going to do. And is it going to cost you some buyers? It may.
But like you said, it may cost you a lot of what you're weeding out would probably be less serious buyers. So then your time is used. I mean, because I think so many people don't understand, you know, when they're calling a buyer's agent, you know, because in the past there have been no upfront charges on that. So I think a lot of folks never thought about how much a buyer's agent runs, how much time they spend on the road, how much time they spend running clients that they don't ever make a dime off of.
Well, and to me, it's not just the running, it's the, you know, looking online for those properties,
absolutely.
Trying to weed out the ones that you know are not going to match. If somebody's buying land, it's the looking at the topo maps, sending those to
absolutely.
them, walking the properties.
Right, they don't know
and then
everything.
Going through that contract process.
Right, everything that goes into advance. So not just, like you said, not just the running, but that is a big part of it because buyer's agents do tend to run a lot. But at the end of the day, like you said, we got to find time to go in and check the houses. We do the research. And I do that up front. When somebody sends me an interest in a home, before we ever go look at that, I've already pulled all of that research and I've pulled all of that data on that home and I've sent that to them. You need to put your eyes on this to see if this is something that you want to spend your time on. You know, so you're right. It's very involved.
Yeah. So let's finish up today and let's talk about what are some turnoffs that buyers, if you're taking a buyer out to go look at some houses, what are some turnoffs to them? What are things that just like kill it for somebody?
Well, so I have to tell you a story about this weekend. So I took my cousin's oldest daughter and her fiance are looking for a house. And so Sunday we went to look at a couple houses and we walked into one. And as soon as you walked into it, you had this overwhelming smell of dog. You could tell there'd been animals in the house, and that's okay. There's animals in my house too, okay? But we get around the corner, and the dogs are on the front porch, but we get around the corner, we walk into a room, and I'm not kidding you. These animals had used the bathroom in the front living room of this home, and instead of mopping it up before a showing, they had fans turned on that to try to dry that up.
Like Surf Pro coming in to clean out a basement that's been flooded. Yeah,
but it hadn't even been mopped. Like there was puddles of urine on the floor. Yeah, buyers don't like that. But seriously, you know, just keep it maintained. Buyers don't like walking in and feeling cluttered or feeling smothered or not being able to see their own self in a house because there's so much stuff everywhere. To me, the yard is a big deal. Is your yard mowed? You know, keep it mowed once a week while your house is on the market. That's a big deal. You know, just mainly, I mean, and a house can have, let's just face it, every house is going to not perfect. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have some things there. But if you've got clutter and things laying out on top of that, it's just yeah, I mean, it's just hard for them to see themselves there. You want to make it, again, kind of like as much of a blank slate, in my opinion, as you can, so that when they walk in, they can start to envision themselves there.
I know one hard thing, even if I'm going in to list a house and I'm walking through it, if people have furniture all along the walls and like, to me, if you're representing the buyer and you're walking through it, like, what's behind the wall? You know, and when are you going to get an opportunity to actually see? Because it could be that they only painted half the wall above the furniture.
Right.
They move out, you come to do a final walkthrough, and you're like, what the crap? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I've sold houses where somebody would have a huge area rug, like in the living room or something. And, you know, they've got furniture that's placed on top of this area rug, and then you go to do your final walkthrough, and they've rolled that area rug up, and it's gone, and you have two-tone floors.
Right.
From where the sun has faded,
right.
You know, part of that flooring. And I don't know, I'm with you 100% on people need to think through, you know, how is this going to appeal to a buyer? How's this going to look? And a lot of times those type of homes are going to be renter occupied.
That's true.
And so the renter is not going to do the seller any favors.
No.
They are going to make the showings as difficult as possible. So anytime somebody calls me talking about, oh, well, I've got a rental property, I'm thinking about selling, okay, you need to get the renter out.
Yeah.
Because I have seen too many deals go south because of a renter. They never want to move. You know, they don't want to move. They don't want to be inconvenienced. So they're going to do everything they can possible.
Right, especially if they're
hiccups
a long-term renter, and you would think that they, you know, some of those things wouldn't happen, but especially if they're a long-term renter and they've had a set amount that they've been paying
below market value, 9 times
way below market value, especially, you know, if you've been renting the same house for, let's just say, 5 years. Think about how much the rental market has changed in 5 years even. You know, so I think folks know that when they give up that 5-year-old rental price that they've been paying, they're going to have to switch that, and that typically doesn't motivate them to help you sell your home.
Well, the thing of it is, I guess what they're not thinking through is, okay, so you make this sale hard on the seller, they take the house off the market, and they bump your rent up to market value now.
Mm-hmm.
What have you done to yourself at this point?
Right.
So,
and going back to what you were saying about the stuff around and I just to throw this out there for maybe first-time home buyers or folks that are running FHA, VA, things of that nature, where there might be some restrictions on some of those things. It's not just that did they just paint from that part up, but are there holes hidden in the walls? Are there other things that are hidden in the walls that, you know, are behind that collective mess? And here's my problem with that. Unfortunately, if the appraiser is the person that finds that, and you realize that that house is not going to go FHA or VA, well, then that buyer who's already financially strapped is going to have to pay for an appraisal now for a home that they're not going to end up in if somebody's not going to make those repairs. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's just a lot more to it.
And I'll say this from a listing agent perspective. If somebody as a seller agrees to a contract that has FHA financing,
yes,
okay, then their agent should be explaining to them that, hey, we might get to the appraisal stage of this, and the appraiser come back and say, oh, you've got to put a handrail in.
Right.
Or you're going to have to take care of this peeling paint. It's really not an option of saying, we're not going to do that.
Right.
You know? It's either we're going to have to give the buyer an allowance to get them to be able to hire somebody to get that done, or we're just going to have to do it. I'm not one who will just kind of say, oh, well, you know, we're just not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. To me, if you accept that type of financing, then you need to be prepared.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? As
Agreed.
A listing agent, you need to be walking through that house, and if you know you're going to have FHA issues, then you just tell the the seller,
Right.
hey, we probably don't need to accept government type loans on this because X, Y, and Z.
If you don't want to fix it.
Right, if you're
Absolutely.
not willing to fix those type of
Absolutely.
things.
I totally agree. And that's when I'm looking at a house with, especially with a first time home buyer or somebody that I know doesn't have a lot of liquid to put down in the beginning, I'm always thinking about those things. What are their upfront costs going to be? And I don't want them wasting money. And sometimes they'll get aggravated at me a little bit because I'll tell them this is not going to go. And they want it to go so bad, but because of the circumstances of that house, I have to think about again, okay, I can tell you what you want to hear, but then now
When
you're going
you're
to
out
have,
$1,000
when
from
you're out
home
of,
inspections and
right.
appraisals.
Right. And so that's what I'm trying to do when I'm doing that is save you that money and put that towards a home that is actually going to work for you.
Right. And they'll say, well, I sent it to my lender, and the lender looked at it online and said they didn't see a problem. Has your lender been inside the house?
Right. Right.
Because, I mean, most people are hiring professional photographers, and they can make a lot of things look good that may not be. I mean, I know recently I have looked at photos online of a house, went out to it, and was like, yeah, this looks nothing like what the photo showed it to be.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, we are going to wrap it up for today, but we will be back in 2 weeks with some more ramblings, and hopefully our other gals will be back with us then.